Hwan had always cherished the simple life she had with her family. Growing up in a modest household, her parents showered her with love, and their happiness was enough for her. Tragedy struck when her mother passed away 2 years ago, and just a year later, her father was taken from her in a car accident. The loss left her hollow, but her world brightened when she met Taehyung 5 years ago. Taehyung was everything she had never dared to dream of. From the moment they met, he had a way of making her feel like the most special person in the room. Their relationship blossomed naturally, and after 3 years of dating, they tied the knot. Taehyung was the epitome of a perfect husband, gentle, attentive, and utterly devoted to her. For Hwan, he was a sanctuary in a world that had shown her too much loss. But one shadow loomed over their happiness: Taehyung's mother. From the beginning, it was clear that his mother disapproved of Hwan. Perhaps it was her middle-class upbringing, or maybe it was simply that Hwan wasn't the wife she had envisioned for her son. Taehyung, aware of his mother's indifference, chose to shield Hwan from the negativity. He kept her separate from his family as much as possible, ensuring she never felt unwelcome or unworthy. Taehyung's two sisters, Emma and Nea, mirrored their mother's attitude. While they never mistreated Hwan, their interactions were distant and formal, lacking warmth. Hwan didn't mind much. Her life with Taehyung was fulfilling, and his love more than compensated for the coldness of his family. For Hwan, Taehyung was her everything. His love made her feel secure and cherished, and she poured all her energy into their relationship. Despite the disapproval of her in-laws, her world revolved around the man who had given her a new reason to smile. Her simple wish was to live a peaceful life, enveloped in the love she shared with him. When Hwan shared the news of her pregnancy, Taehyung's joy was indescribable. He was over the moon, treating her like the most precious gem in the world. Every moment of her pregnancy became a cherished memory for him. Surprisingly, his mother and sisters were genuinely happy with the news as well, and the air of indifference seemed to lift slightly. At 7 months pregnant, the family had another reason to celebrate. Nea's wedding was fixed for 2 months later. The household buzzed with excitement as preparations began. One evening, during a discussion about wedding roles, Nea suddenly turned to Hwan and asked, "Hwan, will you be my maid of honor?" Hwan blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected request. "Oh, Nea, I don't think that's a good idea." "I mean, I'll be heavily pregnant, and exactly why you don't need to worry about a thing," Nea interrupted, her tone firm but kind. "Emma and I will handle everything. All I need is for you to stand beside me and look beautiful. You'll be resting most of the time anyway." Hwan hesitated, but the sincerity in Nea's voice was undeniable. "Are you sure I don't want to be a burden?" Nea rolled her eyes playfully. "Please, Hwan, stop being so selfless for once and just say yes. It's my special day, and I want you there with me. Do it for me." Emma chimed in with a grin, "And besides, you'll be the most glowing maid of honor ever, pregnant glow and all." With their combined persuasion, Hwan finally gave in, smiling softly. All right, I'll do it, but only if you promise to let me sit down if I need to. Deal?" Nea exclaimed, clapping her hands. Over the next 2 months, something changed. Nea and Emma, who had always maintained a polite but distant relationship with Hwan, began to show genuine warmth. They constantly checked on her well-being, and Nea often brought snacks and little gifts for the baby. The bond between them strengthened, and for the first time, Hwan felt truly accepted by Taehyung's sisters. The day before the wedding, Hwan was now 9 months pregnant and feeling the weight of it literally. She sat with Emma in the living room, sipping on tea as they finalized some last-minute details. Emma frowned, setting her cup down. "Hwan, come on. You've made it this far, and everything will be fine. The wedding isn't going to be complete without you. Nea will be devastated if you don't show up. I know, but no buts." Emma cut her off gently but firmly. You've been such a big part of this wedding. If you don't come, I'll be heartbroken too. And trust me, we'll all be watching you like hawks. Wine inside, biting her lip. I don't want to ruin anything. You won't, Emma reassured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Your family, why then? This wedding is just as much about celebrating that as it is about Wyan smiled softly, nodding. Okay, I'll be there. But you better not let me lift a finger, Emma grinned. Deal, now let's go over the seating chart one last time. As Wyan leaned back, feeling her baby kick, she realized how much had changed in the past few months. For the first time, she felt truly embraced by Taehyung's family, and it filled her with a quiet happiness. With Taehyung by her side, she knew everything would be all right. The wedding day was filled with joy and excitement, with everyone busy in their respective roles. Wyan sat in the corner as per Taehyung's strict orders not to move, but discomfort began creeping in. A sharp pain struck her, and though she initially dismissed it as a false alarm, the unease grew stronger. Feeling the urge to use the restroom, she carefully got up and walked towards the ladies' room, biting her lips against the discomfort. Once inside, Wyan placed her things near the sink. As she turned toward the stalls, a sudden splash startled her. Her water had broken. Panic set in as tears streamed down her face. She struggled to stand upright, clutching her belly and phone tightly. The intense pain made it hard to focus, and she was about to dial Taehyung when the restroom door opened. Relief washed over her when she saw Mrs. Kim step in. Oh my God, why then? Are you okay? Mrs. Kim exclaimed, rushing to her side. Wyan handed her the phone with trembling hands. Call Taehyung. I need to go to the hospital. Please, she gasped between breaths. Mrs. Kim nodded, but as Wyan leaned on the sink for support, Mrs. Kim hesitated. Taking a few steps back, her expression shifted. Before Wyan could fully process what was happening, Mrs. Kim locked the restroom door from the outside, leaving Wyan alone and in pain. Mrs. Kim, what are you doing? Wyan called out, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and disbelief. She banged weakly on the door, but there was no response. The betrayal stung almost as much as the pain coursing through her body. Mrs. Kim's expression hardened as Wyan pleaded, clutching her belly. This is my daughter's special day, and I won't let you ruin it. Bear it for an hour, and then we'll take you to the hospital, Mrs. Kim said coldly. Wyan's eyes widened in shock. No, please, I can't wait, my baby can't wait. She screamed desperately, but Mrs. Kim ignored her and stepped out, locking the door from the outside. Wyan's panic grew as she banged on the door, yelling for help. The loud music outside drowned out her cries, and despair settled in. Clutching her belly, she slid to the floor, her breaths coming in short gasps as she felt a panic attack creeping in. Her mind raced, but she forced herself to focus. No, Wyan, your baby needs you to stay strong. You can't lose it now. She inhaled deeply, trying to steady her nerves, and resolved to find a way out. Taehyung's brows furrowed as he paced the wedding venue, his heart pounding in his chest. Something wasn't right. He had only left Wyan for a few moments to escort Nia down the aisle and be part of her big moment. But now, his wife was nowhere to be seen, and an overwhelming restlessness consumed him. He muttered to himself, she must be around here somewhere ... but where? Approaching his mother, Taehyung asked, Mother, have you seen Wyan? She wasn't at the ceremony. Mrs. Kim hesitated for a moment before replying. She said she wasn't feeling well and went upstairs to rest. You should leave her be for now. It's Nia's big day. Taehyung nodded half-heartedly but couldn't shake the uneasy feeling building inside him. He tried to push the thought aside and remained near the newlyweds for a few moments longer. However, as the minutes ticked by, his anxiety grew unbearable. He excused himself, ignoring the disapproving look his mother gave him. Wyan, he called out, his voice echoing as he climbed the stairs, checking every room. Where are you? Each empty room he searched made his heart pound harder. His breaths grew shallow, and a strange fear gripped him. Why wasn't she answering? Running his fingers through his hair in frustration, he muttered, This isn't right. Something's wrong. He hurried downstairs, his eyes scanning the lobby and nearby halls. As he passed the ladies' restroom, he frowned, noticing it was locked from the outside. His steps faltered as he hesitated. She wouldn't be in there ... would she? A chill ran down his spine. There's nothing wrong with checking. Steeling himself, Taehyung reached for the lock and unlocked the door. Pushing it open, he froze, his breath hitched at the sight in front of him. There on the cold floor lay Wyan, unconscious, her face pale and her hands limply resting over her pregnant belly. His world tilted as he stumbled forward, dropping to his knees beside her. Wyan, wake up! His voice cracked with panic as he gently shook her, tears streaming down his face. Baby, please ... open your eyes. Look at me. Her stillness made his chest tighten painfully. Pulling her close, he buried his face in her hair, whispering frantically, I'm here. You're going to be okay. Drawing a shaky breath, Taehyung screamed, Someone help! Call a doctor! His voice carried through the venue, halting the chatter and laughter of the guests. Cradling Wyvin, he stood, his legs trembling but his grip firm. Every step he took toward the exit was purposeful, his focus entirely on getting her the help she needed. The murmurs and gasps of the guests reached his ears, but he didn't care. Not even the sight of the bride and groom standing stunned at the altar stopped him. As Taehyung burst out of the venue, the cold air hit him, but it did nothing to cool the fire of fear raging inside him. Holding Wai-in tightly, he whispered, "I won't let anything happen to you. Stay with me, please, stay with me." Wai-in slowly opened her eyes, her vision blurry as she tried to adjust to the bright lights. Panic rose in her chest as she instinctively placed her hand over her stomach. Her voice trembled, "My baby," her eyes darted to the empty crib, her heart sinking. Tears welled up as she tried to sit up. Just then, the door opened and Taehyung rushed in. Relief flooded his face as he saw her awake. "Why then, are you okay? Please, lay down," he said, his tone a mixture of worrying and tenderness. "Tae," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I'm here," he said gently, guiding her back to the bed. "Just relax. You need to rest. The doctors had to perform a C-section since you didn't regain consciousness." Her heart stuttered, and she gulped. The baby, a soft smile graced Taehyung's lips. "They took our little Taehyung for some tests. He's perfectly fine." A relieved sigh escaped her lips as tears of gratitude filled her eyes. "I told you," she began, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I told you it's a boy." Taehyung let out a dramatic sigh, shaking his head. "You won this time," he admitted with a playful grin. Wai-in smirked, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Better luck next time, Mr. Kim." They both chuckled softly, but her expression softened as she looked at his face closely. "You cried," she said quietly, noting his red, swollen eyes. Taehyung nodded, his lips curling into a small, sad smile. "You almost gave me a heart attack," he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. Her smile faded as the events before she lost consciousness came rushing back. "Tae? Your mom locked me in." Before she could finish, Taehyung leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to her lips, silencing her. "I know," he murmured, pulling back slightly. "But you don't need to think about that now. You need to rest, physically and mentally." Wai-in nodded, though her mind was racing. He knows. What must he be feeling, knowing his mother almost harmed me and our baby? But she decided to let it rest for now. "I'll check with the nurse and bring our baby, okay?" Taehyung said, his voice gentle as he stroked her hair. She nodded, offering him a tired smile. Okay, minutes later, the door opened again, and Emma and Naya walked in. "Wai-in, you're awake," Emma exclaimed, rushing to her side. Naya smiled softly. "We were so scared. Are you feeling okay?" Wai-in nodded, offering a weak smile. "I'm fine now. How long have I been out?" Emma chuckled. 5 hours, madam. You really tested Taehyung today." All three women laughed softly, but Naya bit her lip, her smile faltering. I'm so sorry, Wai-in." Wai-in frowned. "Sorry, for what?" Naya hesitated before saying, "Because of me. Because of my wedding, Mom." "She locked me in the restroom," Wai-in finished softly. "You all know," Emma nodded. "Of course." As soon as we knew you and Taehyung were safe, Taehyung got the venue's lobby footage checked. That's how we found out. Naya sighed. Appa confronted her, but she gave the most ridiculous excuse, something about it being her daughter's big day. "Can you believe that?" Emma added with a bitter smile. She tried to justify it, but Taehyung wasn't having it. He told her she could have turned this day into the darkest day of his life. Wai-in's eyes widened. "So, she doesn't feel guilty?" Naya shook her head. Sadly, no, and she tried to come here to apologize, or so she claimed it. But Wai-in pressed. Emma smirked. "Taehyung stationed guards outside and strictly forbade her from coming anywhere near you or Taehyung." Wai-in's lips parted in shock. "He really did that?" Naya nodded. "That's not all. He wanted to press charges but decided on a different punishment." "What punishment?" Wai-in asked, curiosity piqued. Emma's smirk widened. She begged him to let her hold Taehyung once, but he told her she'd never have the joy of seeing or holding her grandson. "That's her punishment," Wyan felt a wave of satisfaction wash over her. The pain and fear she had felt were still raw, but knowing Taehyung had taken a stand for her brought her peace. Naya suddenly grinned. But, hey, why haven't you asked why I'm still in my wedding dress? Wyan chuckled softly. Why? Naya laughed. Because I want pictures with my brand new nephew. I couldn't change until I see him. Wyan smiled, her heart swelling with love for her husband. Taehyung said no one else would hold Taewoo until I did. Didn't he? Emma and Naya both nodded, their grins matching. This is Taehyung, Wyan murmured, a soft smile playing on her lips. My Taehyung. My upcoming series, when your husband cheated and married your stepsister because you are infertile.